Hey everybody, this is Greg with howtobuildgames.com with another Unity tutorial. I'm going to show you today how to work with Unity 4.3 and get started with some of the basics of the 2D stuff inside there that they just added since my last video came out. So without further delay, and with a lot less rambling, I might add, let's get started. First, let me say, if you go to the website, you can sign up for the email list. That's where you get the code and the art assets and things like that. Oops. If we refresh the page, we've got our latest video there at the bottom, or at least the latest main lesson. Let me just say thanks so much for all the support and encouragement that everybody's shown me. It's been absolutely fantastic. So we're going to fire up Unity. I'm going to hold down Alt while I'm clicking on it. Now you can't do that if it's up here. Alt clicking on it up here gives you the properties. That's not what we want. If you Alt click over here, or when it's in your Finder, however, this is what you'll get. The Unity Project Wizard. And this is really important if you want to do something different, if you don't want to upgrade the default project, because by default, Unity will try to open the last thing you had to open if you don't want to upgrade that to 4.3 yet. If you want to start a new project, if your last project was crashing, these are all really good reasons to Alt click the project, and on the Mac, I believe it's Option click the icon on the bottom row. I don't know what it's called. Sorry. I do use Macs, but not that often. So we're going to create a new project. The key difference between 4.3 and earlier versions of Unity is the setup defaults for. You want to pick 2D. If you forget, it's not the end of the world. You can change it elsewhere, I think in the project settings. And it doesn't do anything super magical. It just, by default, sets up the scenes for 2D. It makes it a little easier. So we're set up for 2D. I'm going to go over here and how to build games, lesson extra 2D. Because this is not picking up where lesson 1 left off. I'll be doing that next week. This is an extra one on 2D. So again, don't need any of this stuff, and we're going to create. Alright, so here we go. That's my custom layout. I'll do a default layout. There we go. So, first thing we need is a few art assets. I'm going to go ahead and create a folder that's called art. Right now, that's all we need. So, there's a couple of different ways you can get stuff in here. One of the ones that I like is you can click several things. I'm just holding down Control to click several different options. And this is all stuff that I got off of openclipart.org, which is a great site. Opengameart.org, also very good, but because I got these from there, I'm able to include them with the package. So be sure and go check that stuff out. If you like the style, you could find, similar things from other people. Anyway, I'm going to click and drag right into my folder, and just like that, it set it up. Brought all those art assets in. Now, one thing you might notice is that it's showing these with some transparency in the background, which is good. That's what we want. It sets them up as a sprite by default. You can see sprite mode and things like that. That's also very good. If you click on this, basically, I believe that is showing the if you have a whole set of sprites instead, sprite sheet, it's going to be showing more, but we don't. So I'm going to start. I'm in a scene. It's got a camera. I'm going to go ahead and grab this tab and pull it over here, just so we can get a little bit of a better idea of seeing the game view and the scene view. I'm going to start with taking one of my objects. It doesn't matter which one. We'll take the turkey, and I'm going to drag him up here, put him into the scene. So he starts at 0, 0, 0. That's good. He's right in the middle of the camera. That's good. If you hit play, nothing would happen. What we want to do, we want to add a component. We want to go to Physics 2D, and we want to add a rigid body. What that's going to do is that's going to make it fall down, basically. That's going to give it mass, have gravity affect it, things like that. So just by adding that component, we hit play and it falls, which is cool. It's a start. Now I'm going to pull in a second object, let's say the bat. So I pull in the bat. I'm going to move him. We'll move him down for now and over. And again, note the transparency. That's going to come into play in just a moment. So we've got our turkey, we've got our bat. If we hit play, turkey falls through the bat. Now the bat does not fall because we did not add the rigid body. Turkey does fall because it does have one. What we want to do with the turkey, and we're going to add component, this time we're going to do it here instead of over there, it doesn't really matter. Add component, Physics 2D. Now that's not going to show up in versions before 4.3, and make sure you get the 2D physics because you cannot mix 3D and 2D in the physics department. There is a cool way that you can mix 2D and 3D, and I'll show you that either later in this video or in the next one. But the key is Physics 2D, and then there's the rigid body. We already added that, so we don't need to add that. We want to add a polygon collider. And let me use my mouse wheel to zoom in a little bit. What that does, when you add it, it builds a basic collider around the object in the shape of the object based on the transparency. Now, you can't change this like worms where you take a chunk out and and then there's a big chunk missing. You can't rebuild the colliders on the fly and things like that right now. It's not animated. If the sprite was animated, the collider would not follow each frame. And there's some pretty good reasons for that. It breaks the physics engine and things like that. But there's still a lot you can do with it. If this is an obstacle or something like that, that would be great. So we've added now a rigid body so that the turkey will drop. We've added a collider so that we have something that's basically in the shape of the object. Now we're going to go to the bat. We're going to add a component. Physics 2D again. We're not going to add a rigid body yet. We are going to add the same thing, the polygon collider. Edge collider might sound like it would do what we want. It doesn't. I haven't looked into it. I'm not sure why it does what it does. It's not what we need. I'll do this. If we put a box collider on there on the bat, and then we hit play, our turkey is going to hit a box around it. And see, this gives us a good idea of what's actually happening in the scene, which is why it's really useful to have the scene view and the game view open sometimes. So let's move the turkey over a little bit so he hits the edge of the box and hit play there. I think he's going to hit and fall off. There you go. So now if we focus over here, what's happening? Well, he's nowhere near the bat, which is not what we want at all. So we're going to go back. We're going to remove this. I'm going to click this little gear right next to it and remove component. So that collider's gone off there, and I'm going to add another component, Physics 2D. Now we're going to go back and do the polygon collider. And so now, again, if I hit F, which is really useful to find it in the scene, you can see again that it's now making, and you're looking for the green, that's the polygon collider. This outline bounding box just shows us where the sprite is and lets us move it around. You're looking at the actual green, and it has created a collider that looks a lot like the bat. So now when we hit play, let's watch over here, it's going to hit the edge and fall off the edge very nicely. So now let's move the turkey over a little bit and we'll watch it over here. It's going to hit and it's going to kind of fall in the middle. Look at that. So you're getting some really good collision stuff. If we shift click and pick them both, you can see exactly where it's going. So this is cool. Now, if we don't want a turkey getting knocked around by a bat that's stuck in place, what we can do is we're also going to go and add a rigid body to the bat. It doesn't matter that we did the polygon collider first. And so not adding the rigid body, like if you were making a ground plane, you don't want a rigid body because you don't want your ground to fall down with everything else. So the next thing we'll do is we'll get something for these guys to fall into. Alright, so what we're going for is something like this. We've got a little bit of a bucket, we've got our bat, our turkey, and I've added a cat head. So that's basically what we're going for. They fall in the bucket. Now I'm going to show you how we get there. Go ahead and delete that. And delete all that. Delete all of these as well. Delete, delete, delete. Alright. First thing we need to do is we need a bucket. So, got a bucket, again, off of the Open Clip Art site. I'm going to pull that into Photoshop. The transparency is something that you want to see. You want to be able to see what's happening and what's not. And so the first thing we need to do is take this shadow out. Because if we don't, we just pull that right into Unity. We pull that right into the scene by clicking and dragging it up there. Put it at 0, 0, 0. That's basically where we want it to be. See already, you can see the shadow over here. Well, first of all, that's not what we would want it to look like if we did want it there. But second of all, when you add the polygon collider, well, it's going to take that shadow and make that part of it because, hey, it's part of the image, right? As far as it knows. So that's not what we want at all. So what we do, I'm going to remove that, and we're going to edit this bucket. Close that. Go here. So first thing we're going to do is remove the shadow. I'm grabbing the area select tool. Got tolerance 22. Pick that, and that gets most of that. And it's probably not going to be exact, but it's close enough. Zoom in, hit E to erase. Of course, this is not really a Photoshop tutorial, but this is important if you want to do your own stuff. So if you have a solid background on here like this, then guess what? Your whole sprite inside of the editor is going to look like that, and your collider is going to be one big square. So we don't want that. Go back and delete that back out. So you want this. You want something in the middle. You can see. So I'm going to go ahead and save that out. Just hit Control S and saved it. My little star went away. I'm going to go back in Unity, and there's my bucket. Now it is clean. So now I'm going to go back, add the polygon collider, and just like we would hope for, it's right there. But don't do that because that's not actually what we want. Because now everything hits the top and falls through. So the problem we've got is we need something that looks like the bucket but isn't shaped like the bucket really. So we've got our bucket here. I'm going to go ahead and drag that up here into the scene. I'm going to zero it out just to give us kind of a good place to start. I'm going to move it down. I'm going to scale it up a little bit so that these things fit into it. Move it over. I can actually grab all three of these if I want, scale them a bit. Alright, now we can kind of see everything better. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add an empty game object. Now everything in Unity is a game object, so an empty game object is kind of like a container that we can put anything on or in. Now we've got this empty game object, we can add scripts to it. It's just like any other game object. It just doesn't have a mesh or a sprite or anything attached to it. So starting with that, I'm now going to go and add a component, physics 2D. I'm going to add a box collider. I'm going to hit R to be able to move it around, scale it. I'm going to hit 2D to go back into 2D perspective mode, W to be able to move it. It doesn't have to be exact. You want to get it as relatively close. You don't want to frustrate your players because it looks like it should be going in, but it's not. So now that we've got that one basically done, we're gonna rename that right wall. I'm gonna right click over here, duplicate, move it over, hit E, or click up here. I use the keyboard shortcuts, W to move. So now that looks pretty good. We're going to call that left wall. I'm going to take both of those guys and move them to be children of the bucket object. The reason I do this is so that I can click now in the scene view and grab the bucket object, move it around, colliders are going to move with it. If I want to scale it, they scale with it. This is a good thing. I'm going to undo that. So now, we click over here, we can watch, and we hit play. They should bounce on those walls. Well, that's a little too big. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Try it again. Well, it seems to be doing something, but we can't tell. We can't see. So I'm going to hit the 2D button. Well, okay. Well, everything's fallen through it, behind it, so that's not what we want. So we'll move the bucket back a little bit. And so now we can see that, well, the good news is things are colliding with the bucket. Scale it down a little bit more. The bad news is that now everything is thoroughly in front of the bucket, and that's not really what we want either. So turn 2D off. I'm going to move the bucket forward because we want things to be falling in the bucket. So what we need to do is split the bucket. So go back, show that in Explorer. Let's see, do I still have it open in Photoshop? Okay, I do. I'm going to use the polygon lasso tool. You can use a regular lasso tool if you want. And I'm basically just going to go through and split this thing up. Again, really doesn't have to be exact. Just kind of a rough, quick, doesn't matter. That, bam. Alright, now I'm going to cut that piece out. And I'm going to go File, Save. Now I'm going to undo. Well, step backwards. I'm going to Control-Shift-I and delete everything else. And then Control-D or Command on Mac to get back to just the top piece. Now this is important. And that's just an easy way to have things in one file size. They're not in one file though. So File, Save As. Now we're going to call it Bucket 2D Top. You see our bucket is already there, that's the bottom. Now we're saving out the top. Now if I Alt-Tab back over to Unity, okay, well, our bucket now, that updated itself. So the only thing we really need to do is pull this back into the scene. We want to put it in the same location as this one is. So you can eyeball it if you want. I guess we'll do that. Actually, you know what? Let's do this instead. Delete that. I'm going to right click and duplicate this. So now I'm working with the duplicate. I'm going to delete the colliders for that. We call this bucket top. Then I'm going to grab the bucket top and drag it onto there. Nope, not what I wanted. bucket top. I'm going to pick the sprite. It says, hey, which sprite do you want? Well, I want this one. So what we've done, the reason we duplicated this was so that it would be the same size. Now we don't have to line things up. They're already aligned. And so again, we duplicated this. We deleted the extra pieces. We renamed it. Hit this little button right here, which says, okay, this is the sprite for this game object. That's the object. That button lets me pick all of the sprites. So any sprite in the scene that I want to pick is right there. Double click that, good to go. So what we've got now is close, but not quite, because now this top is still in exactly the same position as the other pieces. So what we want to do is drag that back. Now what we see is they fall through. Now we want to stop them from falling through. So we're going to go back up here, click on bucket. We're going to create, let's delete that. We're going to duplicate. Let's go back into 2D mode. We're going to duplicate the right wall and call that the floor. I'm going to zero out the rotation so that I can rotate it over here and hold down Control or Command on Mac. And so it's snapping 2 degrees. And so that's 90 degrees. Got it over here. Maybe make it a little bit wider. Just drop it around there. Perfect. So now things are going to fall in our bucket and just stay there. How do we know that? Well, we can see basically if we go into 2D mode, or if we turn 2D mode off, there's our collider. We're still in play mode though. I'm going to drag this back because the camera respects the order. So here's the back, the objects that are falling, in the bucket. And so we can see if we do that, oh, there's our stuff. So what you might want to do is instead of having them fall and just land in the bucket, you could have that turn into a trigger that would remove the object and add a point. We'll do that in the next video of this series. For now, I'm going to go ahead and add the cat back in because I said we were going to add in the cat head. And we're going to add a component to that. And again, you need the rigid body to make it fall. And you need the polygon collider or some kind of collider. And I'm going to hit F just to zoom up on it. So that's a pretty good job. You need some kind of collider on it so that it will... I'm going to move this up so that it's in front of the back, or we can just move the back way, the top part way back. You need some kind of collider on it so that it will interact with the other objects. So if the cat head just fell all the way through, that would be because there was no collider there. So that's where we're going to stop today's lesson. Here in the States, Thanksgiving is next week, so I guess it's appropriate that we have a turkey looking out of a basket. Halloween was, not that long ago. And hey, a cat head rolling off. So that's the end of this lesson. Next time in the 2D series, which is just going to be a couple of videos in a row for howtobuildgames.com, I will show you how to turn that collider into a trigger so that when things hit it, we can trigger something in the code and remove it and give points so that we could have, 100 of these things falling down and they would all go into the bucket and they would just get points. So it would be a lot like the old Kaboom game from Atari where you move the bucket back and forth and try to catch things. You could do something like that very easily with this. And that might be what we try to do in part 3 of the video. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. As always, please go to howtobuildgames.com, sign up for the email list. You only have to do that once, and when you do that, you get my email address. So if you want to email me, you can do that. You also get access to the source code and all the art assets that I've used here. OpenGameArt.org is a good place to go and check out and get some artwork that you can use in different ways. You have to read the license requirements on each one, but there's some really great artwork here. You can also go to openclipart.org and you can search for bucket and find a wooden bucket, which is what I did, and then we tweak it a bit. I'm thankful to these guys so that I can include this stuff because it's in the public domain. So I can include these with the files. Go to howtobuildgames.com, sign up for the email list, and make sure you like the video and subscribe if you want to see more videos. I'm doing a main series and then a secondary during the off weeks, which is like this one. There will be different lessons introducing the 2D stuff in this case. There's going to be, some that are, hey, here's all about lighting. Maybe here's how to do some GUI stuff. Maybe take one of the games that we made and polish it up and make it look really nice. So that'll be on the off weeks. But the main lessons will be every other week. And I'll hit most of the off weeks. So be sure to like it, subscribe on YouTube, and subscribe here. And this is Greg with howtobuildgames.com. I'll catch you next time. Thanks.